My name is Caroline, and today I'm going to be doing a gentle reading of some Halloween and spooky themed picture books. I really love children's books. I feel like they're not as appreciated by adults as they should be. There are some books with some really amazing illustrations and funny storylines that both adults and children can enjoy. So I'm thinking about starting a children's book series, ASMR series. So this is going to be the first. These are some books my wife and I have collected over the years, some interesting Halloween and spooky themed stories. I don't know if I'm going to get through all of them, but I'm going to try. So yeah, let's get started. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, also, I have this little pumpkin that lights up, and I don't love the lighting, but is this too obtrusive? Yeah, we're gonna keep this on. The first book I want to start with is Bony-Legs, and this is by Joanna Cole, pictures by Dirk Zimmer. This is basically a book themed after Baba Yaga, the Russian tale of a witch who lives in a house that is on top of chicken feet. It's a really common tale. I'll just give a little disclaimer that this is like a classic evil witch story, which I feel mixed about because Baba Yaga as a character is actually a more complicated figure in stories, who she kind of like toes the line between being evil and being someone who's kind of just a more like chaotic neutral character. But in this one she is trying to eat a child, so Bony-Legs. Bony-Legs was a horrible, bad witch. She could run very fast on her bony old legs. Her teeth were made of iron, and she liked to eat little children. She lived deep in the woods in a hut that stood on chicken feet. All day long she waited for children to pass by. On the edge of the same woods, a girl named Sasha lived with her aunt. One morning, Sasha's aunt sent her out to borrow a needle and thread. Sasha took some bread and butter and a bit of meat for lunch. She began to walk. She walked and walked. She was surprised when she came to a hut that stood on chicken feet. She decided to go inside. She opened the gate. It creaked and groaned. "Poor gate," said Sasha. "You need some grease." She scraped the butter from her bread and rubbed it on the hinges of the gate. It opened quietly. Sasha walked up the path. A skinny dog stood in her way. It barked and barked. "Poor dog," said Sasha. "You look hungry." She gave her bread to the dog. He ate it up and did not bark again. A cat was sitting near the hut, mewing sadly. "Poor kitty," said Sasha. "Are you hungry too?" She gave her meat to the cat. Old Bony-Legs poked her head out the window. "What do you want?" she asked Sasha. "My aunt would like to borrow a needle and thread," said Sasha. "Come right in," said the witch. Sasha went inside. "Now," said Bony-Legs, "get into the tub." "Why?" asked Sasha. "I don't need a bath." "I want you nice and clean," said Bony-Legs. "I'm going to cook you up for my supper." She grinned and showed her iron teeth. Then she went outside to gather sticks for the fire. She locked the door behind her. Sasha was scared. She began to cry. "Don't cry," said a voice. "I will help you." Sasha looked around. No one was there but the cat. "Fill the tub, but don't get in it," said the cat. Sasha had never heard a cat talk, but she did what it told her. Also, look at the design on the tub. It's so cool. Bony-Legs called through the door. "Are you washing, girl?" "Yes, I am," said Sasha. "Good," said Bony-Legs, and she went away to gather more sticks. After she had gone, the cat gave Sasha a silver mirror. "When you are in trouble, throw this away," said the cat. That does not make sense, thought Sasha, but she took the mirror and put it in her pocket. "Now run," said the cat. Sasha climbed out the window and began to run. The witch called through the door again. "Are you washing, girl?" "Yes, I am," said the cat. "Well, hurry up," said Bony-Legs. Then she went away. Sasha ran through the yard. The dog stopped her and gave her a wooden comb. "When you need help, throw this away," said the dog. That does not make sense, thought Sasha, but she put the comb in her pocket. Then she opened the gate. It did not make a sound on its buttered hinges. Sasha ran into the woods. Bony-Legs called through the door again. "Are you washing, girl?" "Yes, I am," said the cat. "What?" said Bony-Legs. "Not done yet?" She flung open the door. There was the cat. There was the tub. But where was Sasha? "You sneaky cat," yelled Bony-Legs. "Why did you trick me?" "You never fed me," said the cat, "but Sasha gave me meat to eat." "Bah!" said Bony-Legs, and she ran into the yard. The dog was sleeping in the sun. "You lazy dog," shouted Bony-Legs. "Why didn't you bark at her?" "You never fed me," said the dog, "but Sasha gave me bread to eat." "Bah!" said the witch, and she ran to the gate. "You worthless gate," she screamed. "Why didn't you lock her in?" "You never took care of me," said the gate, "but Sasha put butter in my hinges." The old witch flew into a rage. She stamped her feet, pulled her hair, and even pinched her own nose, but she did not feel any better. She ran after Sasha and her bony old legs. Sasha looked back and saw the witch's iron teeth glinting in the sun. Sasha was scared. She remembered the silver mirror. She took it out of her pocket and threw it behind her. The mirror became a deep silver lake. Bony-Legs could not cross it. She ran home and got in her tub. She rowed it across the lake and ran after Sasha on her bony old legs. Sasha saw the witch coming again. She remembered the wooden comb. She took it out of her pocket and threw it behind her. The comb grew until it was as tall as 3 trees. Bony-Legs could not climb over it. She could not dig under it. She could not even squeeze through it. At last she gave up, and she stamped her feet, pulled her hair, and pinched her nose all the way back to her hut. Sasha went home too, and you can be sure she never went back to the hut that stood on chicken feet, and for as long as she lived, she never saw old Bony-Legs again. The end. Yeah, I really love the art in this one and the colors. It's very cute. Okay, next I think we're gonna read. This is like a proper children's book. It's called The Goofy Ghost. I'm not obsessed with the story. It's pretty simple, but I really love the colors of this. Like, look at the cover. It's so cute. By Sharon Peters and illustrated by Tom Garcia. The little ghosts lived in a haunted house. They are good and spooky. They hiss and they boo. But the littlest ghost is not spooky. He is goofy. Crash, bang. What is that? The littlest ghost trips on the rug. He trips in the hall. The littlest ghost trips on nothing at all. Try to hiss, try to boo, try to be spooky, not goofy. The little ghost tries and tries, but he is still goofy. One night, a big bad ghost comes. He wants to live in the haunted house. The good little ghosts try to be spooky. They hiss and they boo. But the big bad ghost is spooky too. He hisses and he boos too. The littlest ghost tries to be spooky. He tries to hiss and boo too. But he is still goofy. Crash! He trips on the rug. Bang! He trips in the hall. What is that? That is spooky. The big bad ghost does not want to live in the haunted house, thanks to the littlest ghost. Thanks to the goofy ghost. The end. That was a new one that my wife and I just got from a used bookstore in our neighborhood, and this is the other one we got with it. It's called Little Dracula's First Bite by Martin Waddell and Joseph Wright. This is just the inside of the cover. So cute. This is Castle Dracula, where the Draculas live. There's Little Dracula, Big Dracula, Mrs. Dracula, Millicent, Igor, Granny, Cat, Batty, Handy, Slave. Slave. This is just like a map of people and places inside the house. Okay. Every evening, just after breakfast, Big Dracula got in the coach and went off to work. And every morning he came back. "What does Daddy do at work, Mom?" Little Dracula asked one day. "He's something in the village," said Mrs. Dracula. "What sort of something, Mom?" asked Little Dracula. "Just something," said Mrs. Dracula, dusting the pictures. "What does Daddy do in the village?" Little Dracula asked Igor. "Frights him and bites him," said Igor. "Dad," said Little Dracula, Dad, I want to fright him and bite him just like you. I'll teach you, said Big Dracula, and he gave little Dracula some lessons. Little Dracula practiced very hard. Very good, little D, said Big Dracula. Next evening, little Dracula went off in the coach with Igor, and Big Dracula stayed at home. And this sign says, "Trespassers will be bitten." They got to the village. "Try that one," says Igor. Lovely Lucy lay in bed, not knowing that little Dracula was about to pounce. Lucy laughed at him. Poor little Dracula. He tried again and again and again, but he couldn't frighten anybody. "No frights, no bites," said Igor. "I want my mom," said little Dracula, and they drove sadly back to the castle. But then... "Stop the coach," cried little Dracula. "But master," said Igor. He was too late. Little Dracula dived out of the coach and bit. And you can see he bit into a statue. "I'll have to take you to the dentist," said Mrs. Dracula when little Dracula got home. "Don't want to go," sobbed little Dracula. "Your new teeth are already there," said the dentist. "These were only your baby teeth." Little Dracula's first bite. "Little D's first bite," said Big Dracula proudly. "Great job, little D," said Mrs. Dracula, tucking little D up in his coffin. "I'm a real vampire now, like Dad," little Dracula whispered to his baby sister. And that's the end. The next two are two of my favorites. One... We actually have three more. There are two I know I'm going to read, and then one I may just kind of flip through because it's like a comic book version of Dracula, and it's harder to read without just like showing you the pictures the whole time. We'll see. But this is a book I really love. It's called The Skull, and it's by John Klassen. The pictures are really cool in this. So this is The Skull. I'm gonna take the cover off. Part 1. The Forest, the Dark, the House. Ottila ran and ran. She ran through the trees and up hills. She ran for a long time, all through the night. Ottila had grown up in this forest, and after a while the trees began to look different. They were getting closer together. Ottila kept running. As she ran, Ottila began to hear her name being called. She couldn't tell if it was someone's voice or the wind in her ears. Ottila, Ottila. Ottila, Ottila. Ottila suddenly tripped on a fallen branch and fell hard into the snow. She didn't get up. She could not run any more. She listened for her name, but now it was quiet. Ottila lay in the snow and the dark and the quiet, and she cried. She's so cute. When she was done crying, she got up and began moving forward again. All at once the trees stopped. She came out of the woods and into an open yard. In front of her, in the distance, was a very big, very old house. And this is the house. Ottila went up to the house. It looked abandoned, but when she tried to open the door, it was locked. She knocked loudly to see if anyone was inside, but nobody came to the door. "Hello?" she called out. "Hello," someone answered. Ottila looked up to where the voice had come from. In a window above the door, she saw a skull looking at her. Part 2. The Skull, the Rooms, the Dance. The skull moved himself a little so we could see better. "Hello," he said again. "Hello," said Ottila. "My name is Ottila. I ran away and I need a place to hide and rest." The skull was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I will come down to you and let you in, but only if you promise to carry me once I do. I am just a skull, and rolling around is difficult for me." Ottila was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "All right." The skull left the window. Ottila waited outside the door. She waited for a long time. It was very quiet. Then she heard some small scratching on the other side of the door. The latch turned and the door cracked open against the snow. The skull pushed the door open wider. "Thank you," said Ottila. "You're welcome," said the skull. Ottila picked him up. She had never picked up a skull before. "Come in," said the skull. "I will show you the house." "All right," said Ottila. They walked into the hall. "It is a nice house," said Ottila. "Yes," said the skull. "I have always liked it here." "Have you lived here for a long time?" said Ottila. "Yes," said the skull. They went into a room. "This is the fireplace room," said the skull. "I come here to drink tea by the fire in the evenings." "You can make tea?" said Ottila. "No, not anymore," said the skull. "You can make a fire?" said Ottila. "No," said the skull. They were quiet. "Is that you in the picture?" said Ottila. "It used to be," said the skull. They went into the garden room. "Oh, I like this room," said Ottila. "This is my favorite room," said the skull. "Can you eat the pears?" said Ottila. "I can eat the ones that fall on the ground, but I can't reach the good ones on the branches," said the skull. "I will get one for you," said Ottila. She held a pear for him, and he took a bite. The bite of the pear went through him and fell on the floor. "Ah, delicious," said the skull. "Thank you." They went into a room with masks hung on the walls. "What are these masks for?" said Ottila. "I used to collect them," said the skull. "Can you wear them?" said Ottila. "They are just for show," said the skull. "You are not supposed to wear them." They went downstairs. "What is this room?" said Ottila. "This is the dungeon," said the skull. "There is nobody in it now." "What is this hole?" said Ottila. "That is a bottomless pit," said the skull. Ottila threw the core of her pear into the hole and listened. It did not make a sound. "Do you want to see the tower?" said the skull. "All right," said Ottila. They climbed the steps up the tower. "Does anyone else know about this house?" said Ottila. "No," said the skull. "You are the first person to find it in a very long time." They got to the top and walked out onto the balcony. You can see everything from here, said the skull. It's beautiful, said Ottila. Careful, said the skull. The wall is not very high, and it is a long way down if you fall. They looked out over the forest. You said you ran away, said the skull. Yes, said Ottila. You don't want them to find you? No, said Ottila, I don't. The skull waited to see if she wanted to say any more, but she didn't. All right, said the skull. Then he said, There's a big room I haven't shown you. How big? Said Ottila. This is the biggest room I have ever seen, said Ottila. This is the ballroom, said the skull. It was for dancing. There were lots of dances here. I went to a dance once, said Ottila, but it was not in a room like this. I did like the dancing, though. I love dancing, said the skull. Ottila put her mask back on. She carried the skull to the middle of the ballroom. She held him to her face. Would you care to dance, sir? Said Ottila. Milady, said the skull. They danced and danced and danced until it got dark. Part 3. The Secret, the Bedroom, the Headless Skeleton. When it was dark, Ottila made some tea and a fire in the fireplace room. Would you give me some tea, please? Said the skull. Ottila took a teacup and poured the tea through his mouth and onto the chair. Ah, nice and warm, said the skull. Thank you. You can spend the night here if you want to, said the skull. I do want to, said Ottila. There is something I should tell you, said the skull. Ottila put her tea down. There is a skeleton that comes here to this house, said the skull. It is a headless skeleton. It walks around the halls looking for me. Has it ever caught you? Said Ottila. No, said the skull quietly, but I am not as fast as I used to be. Ottila looked closely at the skull. You don't want it to catch you. No, whispered the skull, I don't. Will it come tonight? Said Ottila. The skull looked at the fire. It comes every night, he said. Ottila looked at the fire too. All right, she said. She kept looking at the fire, and she started to think. When it was time to go to sleep, the skull showed Ottila to a bedroom. It was a nice room. There was a big comfortable bed and some pajamas for her to wear. Ottila liked the pajamas. We should try to get some sleep, said the skull. The skeleton comes soon enough. Ottila blew out the light. They slept deeply and peacefully for a long time. The house was dark and very quiet, until in the middle of the night, a headless skeleton opened the bedroom door. From somewhere in the skeleton's chest came a voice, but it only shouted one thing. Give me that skull. I want that skull. The skeleton ran into the room. It was faster than Ottila had expected. She had just enough time to grab the skull before it reached him. The skeleton pulled at the skull, trying to get him away from her, but Ottila held on tight. She did not let go. Finally, she got the skull free. She slipped past the skeleton and ran for the door. Give me that skull. I want that skull. Give me that skull. I want that skull. Give me that skull. I want that. And then he fell. They watched the skeleton fall into the dark until they heard it land, the sound of bones hitting the ground. They listened some more, but they did not hear anything after that. "All right," said Ottila. "Time for bed." Ottila carried the skull quietly back down to the bedroom. She put him on the pillow and tucked him under the blanket. Then she put on her coat. "Aren't you going to sleep too?" said the skull. "In a little while," said Ottila, patting the skull gently. "I'll be back soon." She blew out the light and closed the bedroom door. Part 4. The Bones, the Fire, the Pit. Ottila went to the kitchen and found a bucket, a kettle with tea leaves, a teacup, and a rolling pin. Then she went out into the night and climbed down, slowly and carefully, to where the skeleton had fallen. When she got to the bottom, she found the skeleton's bones scattered everywhere. She'd gathered them into a bucket. She found every single one. Ottila carried the bucket of bones to a rock. She took a bone out of the bucket and put it on the rock. Then she took out the rolling pin, held it over her head, and smashed the bone. She smashed it over and over into smaller and smaller pieces, until the pieces were as small as they could get. Then she took out another bone and she did it again. She did it to all of them. Then Ottila made a fire. She made it huge and hot. She melted some snow in the kettle with the tea leaves and made tea over the fire. Then she took the bone pieces and threw them into the flames. She poured her tea into the teacup and drank it as she watched the pieces burn to ash. When the fire was over, she gathered the ashes into the bucket and carried it back up the hill, back to the house. She went down to the dungeon and dropped the whole bucket into the bottomless pit. She watched it fall into the dark and listened. It did not make a sound. Then she climbed back upstairs and went to bed. In the morning, Ottila and the skull had breakfast. Ottila made tea and picked some pears from the branches. "I'm sorry last night was so frightening," said the skull. Ottila smiled and patted the skull. "It's over now," she said. "Thank you for helping me," said the skull. "You're welcome," said Ottila. "I wonder if the skeleton will ever come back," said the skull. Ottila cut a piece of pear. "It won't," she said. The skull looked out the window. "It's a nice day outside," he said. "Do you want to go for a walk?" They went for a walk. It was a nice day outside. Ottila stopped and gave the skull a bite of pear. It went through him and fell onto the sled. "Thank you," said the skull. He took another bite. "You know," he said, chewing the pear, "you could stay here with me if you want." "Do you want to stay? Do you want me to stay?" said Ottila. "Yes," said the skull. "I do." "All right," said Ottila. The end. I really love that story. I think it's really simple but still unique, and I just really like the friendship between this little girl and the skull. It's like kind of creepy but also kind of cute. The last story I'm gonna read is a book I picked up at a bookstore in the White Mountains, and this is called Little Witch Hazel. It's actually a collection of stories. there's one story for each season. So I'm going to read the autumn one, and I'm going to take off the cover so it doesn't make as much noise. I love inside of the cover. It's so cool. This is going to be a little harder to read because the pages are really thick and the book is bigger. So I'm going to do my best. But this is called, oh, first of all, it's written by Phoebe Wahl, but this is called The Autumn Stump. Wait, is that right? This is called The Haunted Stump. Little Witch Hazel was working in her garden when she first heard the noise. Ooh. It was the kind of noise that sent prickles through your whiskers and chilled you right down to your boots. Towering toadstools, thought Little Witch Hazel, a shiver running down her spine. Whatever could that be? A moment later, the Mole Sisters emerged from their hole in a frenzy. "Oh, little witch, did you hear that noise?" the sisters cried. "It sounds like the laugh of a hobgoblin robber," squeaked the moles, wringing their paws. "Well," said Hazel, feeling a bit braver now that she had company, "there's only one way to find out." So together they headed into the woods to find the source of the sound. Soon they came to Mouse's house, where baby's wails joined the eerie sounds coming from the forest. "Have you heard it too?" a frazzled mouse papa said. "My mouselings can't sleep a wink for this terrible racket. I think it's a sleep sucker out to zap all our naps." "Well," said Hazel, "come along and find out." So together, Little Witch Hazel, the Mole Sisters, Mouse Papa, and his mouselings headed farther into the forest. I think you can hear my dog tip-tapping away. Soon they came across Newt, who was trying to hide under a log. "You better clear off if you know what's good for you," he called. "There's a terrible ghost haunting that stump. A horrible ghoul with long ghostly claws and long ghostly teeth, out to eat little beasts like us." Little Witch Hazel, the Mole Sisters, Mouse Papa, the Mouselings, and Newt all turned to the nearby stump. Sure enough, another howling, yowling, bellowing wail came from within. Little Witch Hazel's heartbeat quickened as she approached the stump. As she grew closer, the noise grew louder. Hobgoblins and sleep-suckers, birds, ogres, and ghosts swirled inside her mind, until finally, with a burst of bravery, Little Witch Hazel flung open the door to find the tiniest troll she had ever seen. "Oh, hello," said Little Witch Hazel. The noise stopped as the tiny troll stared at the little witch in surprise. "Were you crying?" Little Witch Hazel asked. "I'm new to town, and I have no one to share my supper with," the tiny troll whispered. "I see," said the little witch. "Well, in that case, I think we can help." So together, the neighbors all crowded into the stump for supper. The little creature laid out a very beautiful place setting for each of them. "It's fungus soup with pine needles and moss," the little troll beamed eagerly. "Delicious," they all murmured. By the time supper was over, the old stump felt warm and full, and everyone was yawning happily. "Next time you're lonely, just come over and knock," Hazel offered, and the tiny troll smiled. And so, with calls of "thank you" and "good night," Little Witch Hazel, the Mole Sisters, Mouse Papa, the Sleepy Mouselings, and Newt all headed home through the still and silent forest, content with the knowledge that they had made a new friend. The end. This is going to be hard to read because it's in the style of a comic book, but I'm just going to share a few like cool pages in this book. This is Dracula, and the other side is Frankenstein, adapted and illustrated by Alice and Joel Schick. I don't know how to pronounce their last name. Both stories are adapted and illustrated by them. Let me just show a few pictures so you can see. And my wife has read the original Dracula, and she said that it's actually very true to the original story. So look how even cool this like opening font is. Like they're cartoons, but still kind of creepy. Like Dracula climbing down the turret. Here's the character Lucy is a vampire. Yeah, I mean, look at this. Definitely recommend this one if you're into Dracula. I think that's going to conclude the stories for this evening. I hope you have a happy Halloween season, spooky season, and see you next time. Pumpkin off.